Most stories about the Hells Angels start loud, engines roaring, tempers flaring, but this one began quiet. Too quiet. A cold November morning, the kind where the air bites your lungs and the world looks like it isn't quite awake yet. And down behind an old mechanic shop on the edge of Pine Ridge, wrapped in a sun-faded sleeping bag, lay a boy nobody paid attention to. 12-year-old Liam Hart. Skinny, hungry, forgotten by more people than remembered him. He had been living behind that shop for 5 months, surviving on half-eaten burgers tossed from passing trucks and the kindness of strangers who never gave a name. Pine Ridge was small, but even in small towns, it was easy to walk past someone who blended into the shadows. But that morning, fate didn't walk past him. It drove straight toward him. Before we dive deeper, quick question for all of you listening right now. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. I always love seeing how far these stories travel. Back to Liam. He was half awake, rubbing sleep out of his eyes, when he heard the crunch of tires on gravel. At first he thought it was the shop owner again, ready to yell at him to move. But the engine wasn't the shop owner's old Ford. This one was smoother, newer, more expensive. Then came the smell, burning rubber, hot metal, and gasoline. Liam's head snapped up. A black SUV had skidded sideways near the intersection 30 yards away. Its front end was crushed against a utility pole, steam jetting out like a wounded animal breathing through broken ribs. And flames, small at first, licked the underside of the engine. Inside the SUV, a girl was screaming. Not a grown woman. Not a teenager. A girl. Maybe 10. Blonde hair. Terrified eyes. Her hands slapped frantic patterns against the window as she fought with the jammed seatbelt. Liam didn't think. He didn't plan. He just moved. His bare feet slapped against the pavement as he sprinted toward the SUV. People from the shops looked out the windows, but nobody came outside yet. That's how fear works. It freezes people. But not Liam. Not the kid who'd been surviving alone long enough to know that sometimes you only have 10 seconds to save a life. Smoke was pouring into the cabin. The girl coughed hard, her tiny body trembling. Liam pulled his sleeve over his hand and yanked the door. Hot, too hot. He winced, teeth clenched, but kept pulling until his muscles felt like tearing. It didn't budge. Inside, the girl's eyes rolled back as she started choking on fumes. Liam stumbled around to the passenger side and kicked the door as hard as his thin leg could manage, again and again, until pain shot up his hip. The metal bent just enough for him to squeeze fingers into the gap. He tugged. The door groaned, then snapped open. Heat punched him in the face, stealing his breath. He crawled inside anyway. The seatbelt was wrapped like a vice around the girl's waist. Smoke stung his eyes until tears streamed down his cheeks, but he clawed at the belt, fingers slipping. Then he spotted a piece of broken metal from the dashboard, sharp enough. He grabbed it, sawed at the belt, and after 3 frantic seconds it sliced free. He hauled the girl into his arms just as fire shot up the dashboard with a burst that rattled the cabin. The entire windshield glowed orange. Liam ducked low, coughed through the heat, and pushed backward until he fell out of the SUV with her. They landed hard. He wrapped his arms around her head and rolled them both away from the flames just seconds before the inside of the vehicle erupted into a fireball that shook the ground. For a moment, everything went silent. Then voices exploded around them. People rushing out from stores, someone calling for help, another shouting to stay back. Liam was still coughing, chest burning, when he felt the girl grip his shirt. She looked up at him with wide, watery eyes. "You saved me," she whispered. Before he could respond, the sound of engines rolled across the street. Not cars. Motorcycles. 7 of them at first. Then 12. Then more, chrome, black, thunderous, the kind of sound that makes glass vibrate. They turned the corner in formation, riding hard, dust flying behind them. And on the front patch of every rider's jacket shone the same symbol, the Hells Angels' death head. The girl turned her head weakly toward the noise and whispered, "That's my dad." The lead bike screeched to a stop. The rider, massive, broad-shouldered, beard streaked with gray, jumped off so fast the bike nearly tipped. His eyes locked on the girl in Liam's arms, and then on the burning SUV behind them. "Riley," he shouted, voice cracking in panic. "Baby." Riley. That was her name. He ran, dropping to his knees beside her as his brothers circled around, blocking the street, securing the area like a military unit. The man pulled Riley into his chest, hugging her with shaking hands. When he finally looked at Liam, shock flickered across his face. "Kid," he whispered, "you pulled her out?" Liam swallowed hard, suddenly aware he was barefoot, soot-covered, and trembling. I couldn't just leave her," he said. A few of the bikers stared at him like they couldn't quite process what they were seeing. A homeless kid crawling into a burning SUV to save the daughter of a Hell's Angel. Then the big man, Riley's father, did something nobody expected. He placed a hand on Liam's shoulder, firm but gentle. "You have no idea what you just did," he said. "But trust me, this club pays its debts." The fire trucks arrived, sirens echoing through Pine Ridge, but the bikers didn't move. They stood around Liam like a wall. Protective, watchful, determined, because they all knew one thing. Saving the life of a Hell's Angel's daughter doesn't end a story. It starts one. The fire trucks drowned the street in red light as thick smoke curled into the sky, but Liam barely noticed any of it. His ears still rang from the explosion. His hands still shook. And for a brief moment, as the bikers formed a protective ring around him and Riley, the world felt unreal, like he was standing inside someone else's life. Riley clung to her father's vest, trembling, coughing, eyes half-lidded from the smoke she'd breathed in. Her dad, Bear, as the other bikers called him, kept whispering to her, his rough voice cracking every few words. You're safe now, baby girl. I got you." The other Hell's Angels scanned the street, watching traffic, checking shadows, making sure the fire didn't spread. They moved with a precision that didn't match the wild rumors people told about them. These weren't the monsters people made them out to be. These were men on alert, protective, loyal, deadly serious. And then one of them, a shaved-headed guy named Rhino, turned toward Liam and crouched down. "You hurt anywhere?" Rhino asked. Liam shook his head. Just smoke. And my hands are little." "Those hands pulled a kid out of hell," Rhino muttered. "Should be proud of them." Liam didn't know how to respond. Praise wasn't something he got often. Not since his mom died. Not since his dad disappeared. Most days, people acted like he didn't exist. But at that moment, these bikers were looking at him like he mattered. An EMT rushed over to Riley and started checking her vitals. Bear kept one arm wrapped around her, as if letting go for even a second might make her disappear. Then another EMT turned to Liam. "Kid, you need to come with us, too. Smoke inhalation can get worse." Before Liam could answer, Bear placed a hand between his shoulder blades. "He's with us," Bear said firmly. "He's not going anywhere alone." The EMT nodded, recognizing that tone, the kind you don't argue with. As they guided Riley and Liam toward the ambulance, a crowd began forming at the end of the block. Phones out, cameras recording, people whispering. "Is that the Angels? Who's that kid? Did he really pull her out?" Rumors spread fast in towns like Pine Ridge. Stories warped by fear or admiration. And watching all those faces staring at him, judging him, whispering, Liam shrank a little. He wasn't used to being seen. Inside the ambulance, Riley sat propped against a pillow with an oxygen mask, her breathing steadier. Liam sat on the opposite bench, a blanket around his shoulders. Bear climbed inside too, filling the small space like a mountain squeezed into a closet. His eyes stayed on his daughter, but when the doors shut and the ambulance pulled away, he finally turned to Liam. "What's your name, kid?" "Liam." "Liam what?" He hesitated. "Liam Hart." Bear nodded slowly, studying him with an intensity that made Liam shift under the blanket. "You got any people around here?" "Family." Liam toyed with a thread on the blanket. Not really. You homeless? Bear asked bluntly. Liam's eyes dropped. I sleep behind the old mechanic shop. Bear clenched his jaw. If someone had punched him. A kid your age shouldn't be living like that. Liam didn't say anything. He never liked talking about his situation, especially not to big men with tattoos who could crush him with one arm. But Bear didn't look angry at him. He looked angry for him. The ambulance siren wailed over the road, slicing through the quiet. Riley watched Liam from her corner, eyes tired but soft. You saved me, she said again, voice muffled behind her oxygen mask. Liam felt his ears burn. I just did what anyone would do. Bear huffed. Boy, I'm going to tell you right now, 99 out of 100 people would have stood there filming. You ran into fire. That ain't normal. His voice cracked again. That's brave. The ambulance made a sharp turn toward Pine Ridge County Hospital. Liam felt his stomach twist. Hospitals made him nervous. They reminded him of his mom, her last days, her last breath, the fluorescent lights humming above her bed. He looked at his hands. Blackened. Shaking. Bear noticed. Kid, listen to me carefully. Liam looked up. What did you do today? Bear said. It doesn't disappear. Men have lived their whole lives and never shown that kind of heart. The club, my brothers, we don't forget a thing like that. He leaned forward, voice lowering. You saved the daughter of a Hell's Angel. And that means something. The ambulance hit a bump, jostling all three of them. Riley grabbed her dad's vest again. Bear pulled her close. Then, something unexpected happened. Riley reached one small hand out toward Liam, fingers trembling, and whispered, Don't leave. Please. Bear looked between them, breath catching. That tiny gesture changed everything. Because for the first time since his mother's death, Liam felt something he hadn't felt in months. Belonged. Before the ambulance stopped, before the doors opened, before doctors rushed in, something else happened too. Something I know your viewers will understand. Because if you're the kind of person who believes courage doesn't come from strength but from heart, and that even a kid with nothing can risk everything to save someone, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because this story is about to dive even deeper into the world where loyalty is earned, debts are paid, and family isn't always blood. The ambulance finally screeched to a halt. The doors burst open. Blinding hospital lights flooded in. And the moment Liam stepped out, 3 more Hell's Angels were already waiting. Not smiling, not relaxed, but serious, because they had questions. And something about that burning SUV wasn't adding up. The hospital parking lot glowed under harsh floodlights, the kind that made everyone look paler, colder, smaller. But the 3 Hell's Angels waiting outside didn't look small at all. They looked like statues carved out of old war stories, scarred, silent, unmoving. The moment Liam stepped out of the ambulance, they straightened. Bear, one of them said, voice gravelly. We saw the wreck. That wasn't an accident. Bear didn't respond immediately. He kept one arm around Riley as EMTs guided her toward the ER doors. She looked back at Liam every few seconds, like she was afraid he might disappear if she blinked too long. Rhino approached the group last, wiping soot from his hands. That SUV didn't just slide, he muttered. Someone cut the brake lines. Liam tensed. Cut brake lines? Bear's jaw tightened so hard the muscles twitched. You sure? Rhino nodded. Clear as daylight. That SUV was supposed to crash. And my kid was inside it. Bear's voice cracked with a rage so quiet it made the air colder. Somebody tried to kill her. The group went silent. Not shocked. Not confused. But furious, like flames being fed gasoline. 2 nurses rushed Riley inside. Bear followed, but before he did, he turned back toward the bikers. Find out who did this. Those 4 words weren't a request. They were an order. The men nodded once, then hurried off, disappearing into the night with a purpose that made Liam's stomach twist. He didn't know much about biker clubs, but he knew enough to understand what a promise like that meant. Someone, somewhere, had just signed their own death warrant. Inside, hospital staff moved quickly, oxygen masks, for lines, soot-covered faces. Riley was rushed into a treatment room, while Liam sat on a plastic chair across the hallway, blankets still around his shoulders. Nurses checked his lungs, shining flashlights in his eyes, asking questions he barely heard. But his thoughts, they were stuck on one thing. If someone tried to hurt Riley, why her? Why today? And who would do something like that? Bear returned 10 minutes later, his eyes red, voice tight. She's stable, he said. Docs say she'll be okay. Liam exhaled a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. Bear sat beside him, rubbing his hands together like he needed something to ground him. Kid, that SUV. Did you see anyone around it before the crash? Anything strange? Liam shook his head. I was waking up. I just heard the tires. Then the crash. Then the fire. Bear nodded slowly, though he looked far from satisfied. Riley said she was coming back from school. The driver dropped her off earlier to get gas. She must have left something behind. But why would someone go after her? Liam asked timidly. Bear didn't answer. Instead, he stared down the hallway, eyes dark with secrets Liam couldn't even guess at. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then, unexpectedly, Bear said, You remind me of someone. Liam frowned. Who? A kid I used to know, Bear muttered. Tough. Quiet. Always acting like he didn't deserve help. Liam looked away. He wasn't used to anyone seeing him like that. Most people saw him as a problem, a stray, a kid living behind a shop. Bear leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Where's your old man, Liam? Gone, Liam said instantly. Left when I was 9. And your mom? He swallowed. Cancer. 3 years ago. Bear shut his eyes briefly, like the words physically hurt him. You've been on your own since you were 12? Liam nodded once. Bear let out a low whistle. Damn. No kid should go through that. Liam shrugged like it didn't matter, like it wasn't something that kept him awake at night. But Bear's voice softened. Listen, Liam, we don't walk away from people who save family. Ever. Before Liam could ask what that meant, a nurse approached. Mr. Kellerman? Your daughter's asking for the boy. Bear looked surprised. Riley's asking for Liam? Yes. She refuses to rest until she sees him. Bear turned back to Liam and nudged him gently. Come on. Let's go. They walked down the hall toward Riley's room. Liam's heart thudded faster with each step. When they entered, Riley was sitting up slightly, her hair messy, her cheeks streaked with soot, her voice weak, but her eyes lit up the moment she saw him. You came, she whispered. Liam managed a tiny smile. Yeah, I'm here. She held out her hand. He took it. Riley's small fingers wrapped around his, trembling but warm. You saved me, she said again. You didn't even know me, and you saved me. Liam looked down, embarrassed. I just didn't want you to get hurt. Before he could say more, Bear stepped outside the room to take a phone call. The door closed behind him, and suddenly, the room felt too quiet. Riley's voice softened. My dad says somebody did this on purpose. Liam froze. Do you think it's true? She nodded slowly. I heard him talking on the phone earlier. He said the club has enemies. Lots of them. Liam's hands tightened on the blanket. Enemies. That word sat heavily in the room. Riley swallowed hard. Do you think they were trying to get to him by hurting me? Liam felt his stomach twist. He didn't know the answer, but he knew this. Someone had tried to kill a 10-year-old girl. Someone had cut her brake lines. Someone wanted Riley dead. And if you believe no child should ever pay the price for an adult's secrets, comment, protect the kids, because after tonight, the truth behind that crash is about to get a whole lot darker. The door swung open again. Bear stood there, face pale, phone still in his hand. But it wasn't fear this time. It was rage. They found something, he said, voice low. And it's bad. He stepped into the room, eyes fixed on Liam. Kid, this isn't just about Riley. Liam blinked. What do you mean? Bear's voice dropped even lower. You were supposed to be dead too. And the entire room went silent. The words hit Liam like a punch to the ribs. You were supposed to be dead too. For a moment, the hospital room seemed to tilt. The beeping machines, the fluorescent lights, the steady hum of footsteps in the hallway, everything blurred. Liam stared at Bear, unable to speak, unable to move. Riley's eyes widened. Dad, what do you mean? Bear didn't answer her. Not yet. His gaze stayed locked on Liam, heavy with something the boy didn't understand. Fear, anger, confusion, maybe all three. Finally, Bear closed the door, lowered his voice, and stepped closer so nobody in the hallway could overhear. My guys traced the SUV, he said. Check the cameras from the gas station Riley stopped at. Liam swallowed. And 2 men were tailing her, Bear said. They weren't amateurs. They knew what they were doing. Riley shifted on the bed, clutching her blanket. Bear continued. The SUV didn't lose control by accident. The brake line was cut. But the timing, the angle, the place they waited, his jaw clenched. Kid, whoever set that up expected 2 bodies in that vehicle. Liam felt his lungs tighten. But I wasn't even in the car. Bear nodded. They didn't know that. A cold wave ran through Liam's body, leaving him numb. Riley stared between them, her voice almost a whisper. Why would anyone want to hurt Liam? Bear sighed heavily. We don't know. Not yet. He ran a hand over his face, like he was trying to push away exhaustion he didn't have time to feel. But someone saw you climb in, kid, he said. Someone saw you drag Riley out. And not long after that, my men found tire tracks near the shop you sleep behind. Liam blinked. What? Bear nodded grimly. Same tread pattern as the car that followed Riley. Meaning they were watching the shop area earlier today. Maybe scouting. Maybe waiting. Liam's heartbeat thudded so loudly he swore Riley could hear it. I don't even know anyone, he whispered. Nobody's after me. Nobody cares about me. Bear crouched down so he was eye level with the boy. Listen, Liam, sometimes bad people go after the ones who look alone. The ones nobody will avenge. Liam's breath caught in his throat. They think a homeless kid behind a mechanic shop won't matter, Bear said. That if he disappears, nobody asks questions. His voice hardened. But they're wrong. Silence settled over the room, heavy enough to choke on. Riley reached out slowly and took Liam's hand again. You're not alone now, she said softly. Liam looked at her, at the girl he had pulled from fire, at the father who looked at him with a kind of protective anger he'd never seen in a grown man. And something inside him cracked open. But the moment was shattered when another biker, Tank, appeared in the doorway with urgency all over him. Bear, Tank said. We've got a problem. Bear stood instantly. What now? Tank held up a phone. On the screen was security footage, grainy, black and white, timestamped just an hour earlier. It showed 2 figures wearing hoodies walking behind the mechanic's shop, walking right past Liam's makeshift sleeping spot. One of the figures bent down and picked something up, a burnt piece of Liam's old blanket that he used as a pillow. The camera angle wasn't clear, but their posture, their deliberate movements, it wasn't kids messing around. Then the shorter one pointed toward the highway and made a slicing motion with his hand. The screen froze. Liam felt ice spread through his veins. That's them, Tank said quietly. Same men from the gas station. Bear stared at the screen, fists clenching. So they were tracking both kids. Riley gasped. Why us? Bear didn't answer. Not because he didn't want to, but because he didn't know. Tank lowered his voice. There's more. We checked the abandoned parking lot behind the shop. He hesitated, glancing at Liam. We found footprints. And cigarette butts. Fresh ones. Meaning they were watching him. Bear finished. Tank nodded. Bear took a slow breath. Then another. Finally, he turned back toward Liam. Get your shoes, Bear said. You're not sleeping behind that shop tonight. Liam blinked. What? Where am I supposed to go? With us, Bear said firmly. Until we figure out who those men are. Liam shook his head, panicked. But I don't want to be a problem. You saved my daughter, Bear said. You became our problem the moment you pulled her from that fire. Tank added. And the angels don't abandon their own. Liam stared at them, confused, scared, overwhelmed. I'm not one of you, he whispered. Bear's eyes softened. Not yet. Riley squeezed his hand again, smiling weakly. You will be. Before Liam could argue, a doctor entered the room with a clipboard. "She's stable," the doctor said, "but she needs rest and oxygen for the next few hours. And the boy," he nodded at Liam, "needs to stay for observation." Bear crossed his arms. "We're staying." Tank took a seat near the wall. Bear moved next to Riley. Liam stayed by her side, the blanket around his shoulders slipping slightly as exhaustion pulled at his eyelids. For a moment, all was quiet. Then Bear's phone buzzed. He checked the screen, and his face darkened. "What is it?" Tank asked. Bear didn't speak. He handed the phone to Tank. A text message glowed across the screen. "You shouldn't have saved the girl. The boy was supposed to die too. This isn't over." Liam's world began to spin. Riley covered her mouth, eyes filling with tears. Bear stared at the wall, jaw tightening, rage building like thunder. And Tank whispered the only words any of them could find. "They know he lived." The room seemed to shrink around them after Tank read the message aloud. Even the machines around Riley felt louder, sharper, almost accusatory. Liam stared at the floor, trying to breathe through the tightening in his chest. His fingers dug into the hospital blanket, so hard the fabric wrinkled and twisted. Someone wanted him dead, and they weren't finished. Tank paced near the doorway, shoulders tight, mind racing so fast his boots scuffed against the linoleum. Bear stood still, too still. That kind of stillness only came from boiling rage held under chains. Riley watched all three of them, eyes glossy, her breath shallow behind the oxygen tube. "Dad, why would anyone want to hurt Liam? He didn't do anything." Bear didn't answer right away. He looked at Liam, really looked at him, like trying to see a truth that had been hiding in plain sight. "What aren't you telling us, kid?" Bear finally asked. Liam blinked. I don't know anything." Bear's jaw twitched. "Think. Anyone your dad ever crossed? Anyone your mom knew? Anyone who might want to hurt you?" "My dad left," Liam whispered. "He left before she got sick." "Then where is he?" Bear pressed. "I don't know." Liam's voice cracked. "I haven't seen him in years. I don't even know if he's alive." The room went quiet again. Tank stopped pacing. "Bear, you thinking what I'm thinking?" Bear didn't look at him. "Say it." Tank hesitated. The timing, the break line, the way the kid was watched, the men at the shop earlier. It feels like they thought Liam was already with Riley, like they expected him in that SUV. Riley covered her mouth. "Dad, did they think we were together?" "Maybe," Bear muttered. "Or maybe someone thought Liam would get in that car for some reason." "But why me?" Liam whispered. Before Bear could answer, his phone vibrated again. He checked it, and this time, his expression shifted from anger to something darker. Recognition. "It's Diesel," Bear muttered. "He's sending a file." Tank leaned over his shoulder as Bear scrolled. The screen filled with a document. Old newspaper clippings, mugshots, birth records, and medical reports. Bear's brows furrowed deeper and deeper. His eyes flicked between the screen and Liam. Twice. 3 times. "What is it?" Liam asked nervously. Bear didn't speak immediately. He sat down heavily, rubbing his temples, like the puzzle pieces were falling into place against his will. Finally, he looked up. "Kid, what was your mom's full name?" Liam swallowed. "Elena Hart. And before she married?" I don't know. She never talked about her family. Said it didn't matter." Tank turned the phone so Liam could see one of the clippings. A younger woman, smiling, holding a baby. Liam froze. That's my mom." Tank nodded. "Elena Harper. She was Harper before she married." Liam frowned. "Harper? So." Bear exhaled, slow, heavy, almost painful. "Kid, the Harper name means something in our world." He glanced at Tank. "Tell him." Tank crossed his arms. "Elena's brother, your uncle, was part of a rival crew. A violent one. The kind of crew that burned bridges and bodies." Liam stared at him in disbelief. "What? My mom wasn't like that." "No," Bear said softly. "She wasn't. Which is why she left. She cut ties. She ran. Changed her last name. Married your father. Tried to give you a normal life." Tank added. "But her brother, your uncle, didn't disappear. He made enemies. Dangerous ones. And some of those enemies aren't the kind to forgive or forget. Liam felt the air leave his lungs. So, someone wants to hurt me because of him? Not hurt you, Bear said. Erase you. Erase the last blood connection to Elena Harper. Riley gasped. But that's insane. That's revenge, Bear said quietly. Revenge that's been simmering for years. And when your mom died, there was nothing left to protect you. They must have been waiting. Watching. Liam hugged himself, trembling. Every memory, every lonely night, every cold morning behind the shop felt suddenly different. He wasn't just forgotten. He was hunted. And if you believe no child should suffer because of an adult's sins, comment, protect the innocent, because what Liam was about to learn would twist the knife even deeper. Bear scrolled further through the file. More clippings. More violence. A mugshot. And then, holy shit, Tank whispered. Bear, look at this. The next image was a grainy photo of a man with a scar running from his ear to his chin. Sharp eyes. Cold stare. Below the photo, deceased. But Tank shook his head. Diesel says this guy ain't dead. Just faked it. Bear's face hardened to stone. Sawyer Kane. Liam looked between them helplessly. Who is he? Bear put a hand on Liam's shoulder. Sawyer Kane is the man who killed your uncle. The man who swore to wipe out the entire Harper bloodline. His voice dropped. And the man who just found out you're still alive. Liam's stomach dropped. But why Riley? He asked. Tank answered. Because Kane needed the crash to look random. Needed it to happen where nobody would suspect foul play. And Riley, she was the perfect camouflage. No one would think an attack on a little girl had anything to do with an old gang vendetta. Bear added slowly. And if Liam was in that car, both problems solved. Riley's eyes filled with horror. They used me as cover? Bear looked like he wanted to punch a hole through the wall. Yes, they did. Liam shook his head, voice trembling. But Riley could have died. Why would someone do that? Bear stared at him, devastated. Because Kane doesn't care who he hurts. Tank stepped forward. Bear, we need to move him. Soon. The hospital isn't safe. Bear nodded. I know. He turned back to Liam. Kid, your whole life has just changed. And from this point on, you don't walk alone. You stay with us. Until this ends. Liam felt the weight of those words settle into his bones. Until this ends, he repeated softly. Bear squeezed his shoulder. We'll keep you alive. But we're running out of time. Tank's phone buzzed again. He checked it. And the color drained from his face. Bear, security just spotted someone in the parking garage. Bear stiffened. Who? Tank swallowed. A man with a scar from his ear to his chin. Liam's heart stopped. Sawyer Kane was here. The moment Tank spoke those words, the air in the room thinned until it felt razor sharp. Bear's entire posture changed. Chin lifted, shoulders squared, eyes narrowing like a predator who'd just caught scent of the one animal he'd spent years hunting. Riley clamped a hand over her mouth. Liam didn't breathe at all. He's here, Bear asked, voice low and deadly. Tank nodded once. Camera caught him on level 2 of the parking garage. Hoodie up, face partly hidden. But that scar is unmistakable. Bear grabbed his cut from the back of the chair. How long ago? Just now. 30 seconds. Then he's not here for sightseeing. Bear turned to Tank. Get the boys. We locked down this entire damn hospital. Nobody gets in, nobody gets out. Tank was already dialing. On it. I'm telling the entire chapter. Riley's small, frightened voice cut through the tension. Dad, what if he comes here? Bear turned toward her so fast his boots squeaked. He won't lay a finger on you, he growled. Not while I'm breathing. Then he looked at Liam. Really looked at him. And Liam saw something new in Bear's eyes. Not suspicion anymore. Not confusion. Responsibility. You stay right here, Bear told him firmly. Don't open that door for anyone unless Tank or I say so. Understand? Liam nodded, but his throat was too tight for words. Bear strode for the door, but paused before exiting, turning back to take one more look at the two kids. The girl who meant everything to him. and the boy whose life had just become the center of a war. Lock the door behind me, Bear said. Tank, stay with them until backup arrives. Tank nodded. Bear slipped into the hallway and was gone. The room felt colder instantly. Tank moved to the door and turned the lock with a harsh metallic click. He dragged a chair toward it, wedging it beneath the handle. Is that really necessary? Liam whispered. Tank lowered himself into the chair, facing the entrance like a sentinel. Kid, when Sawyer Kane decides someone needs to disappear, he doesn't stop. He doesn't hesitate. And he sure as hell doesn't leave survivors. Riley shivered. Liam felt nausea rising in his chest. But how did he even find me? Tank didn't look away from the door. Kane's got connections. Eyes everywhere. When you dragged Riley out of that fire, your face hit local news for 48 hours. Probably all he needed. Liam hugged himself, trembling. So saving Riley exposed me. Tank's voice softened slightly. Kid, listen, what you did saved her life. You hear me? Don't carry guilt that ain't yours. Riley nodded firmly, tears in her eyes. You saved me. And if Dad didn't find you, her voice cracked. We wouldn't even be here now. Liam swallowed hard and nodded, but fear still twisted deep inside him. Tank's phone buzzed. He checked it. Bear says level 2 is clear, he murmured. But they found cigarette ash. Fresh. And footprints heading toward the stairwell. Riley whispered. Is he still inside the hospital? Tank didn't answer, which was answer enough. Suddenly, the hallway outside their room went eerily quiet. No carts rolling by. No doctors chatting. Even the distant elevator ding stopped. Liam's pulse hammered. Tank, Riley whispered. He stood slowly, hand drifting toward the knife hidden inside his coat. Stay behind the bed. Both of you. The kids moved silently, slipping behind the hospital bed, crouching low. Liam held Riley's hand tight, feeling her trembling worse than he was. Another buzz from Tank's phone. He read it. Then his jaw clenched. What? Liam whispered. Tank's voice was barely audible. The cameras on level 3 just went dark. Riley gasped. That's our floor. Tank nodded. He's cutting angles, moving blind spots. The bastard knows how to avoid surveillance. Liam felt his stomach twist. Is he coming here? Tank didn't answer. He didn't have to. A moment later, a soft ding echoed from the elevator at the end of the hallway. Too soft. Too slow. Almost deliberate. Riley dug her nails into Liam's hand. Liam wrapped his other arm around her. Tank stepped in front of them, weapon drawn, eyes locked on the door. Footsteps followed. Slow. Heavy. Measured. 1, 2, 3. Coming closer. Tank lifted a finger. Silence. Liam's breath caught in his throat as he pressed closer to Riley's side, trying to shield her with his body. Every sound outside the room seemed amplified by fear. The footsteps stopped right outside their door. The handle moved, just slightly, rattling against the lock. Tank's grip tightened on his knife. Come on, you son of a... Before he could finish, a rapid pounding erupted down the hallway. Heavy boots. Multiple. Fast. A voice roared. Angels. Move. Tank exhaled. Bear. The pounding of boots grew louder, filling the hallway like thunder. Voices layered over each other. Orders barked. Chaos and urgency. Then, Tank. Bear's voice thundered. Open up. Tank yanked the chair aside, unlocked the door, and pulled it open. Bear stormed in with 6 bikers at his back, all armed, all breathing hard, all ready for war. Riley sagged with relief, breath shaking. Liam did too, though he tried to hide it. Bear's eyes swept the room, then landed on the kids. You both all right? Riley nodded. Liam managed a quiet, yeah. Tank asked, you find him? Bear shook his head. He slipped out through the west stairwell. But we're not taking chances. We're moving the kids. Now. Riley straightened. Where? Bear turned toward her and Liam, voice iron hard. To the clubhouse. It's safer there than any hospital in the state. And until Sawyer Kane is in the ground or in cuffs, you're not leaving our sight. Liam froze. You mean we're going with you? Bear stepped closer, resting a heavy hand on Liam's shoulder. You're family now, he said quietly. Both of you. Liam swallowed hard. Family. A word he hadn't heard in years. Tank moved to the door. Let's roll. The longer we stay, the more risk. Bear nodded once. Boys, form the shield. The bikers moved instantly, forming a protective wall around Liam and Riley as Bear guided them toward the hallway. As they stepped out, the hospital lights flickered overhead. Liam looked back over his shoulder, and for just a second, at the far end of the hallway, near the dim stairwell sign, he swore he saw a shadow slip out of view. Sawyer Kane wasn't done. Not even close. The hospital doors slid open, and the cold night air hit them like a slap. Bear's men immediately tightened the formation. 6 bikers forming a human shield around Liam and Riley as they hurried toward the row of motorcycles and blacked-out trucks parked under the streetlights. Engines rumbled low, controlled, ready. Eyes up, Bear barked. Kane could be watching. Liam scanned the shadows, half expecting the scarred face to appear between parked cars. Every shifting silhouette made his stomach twist. Riley held onto Liam's sleeve, her other hand gripping her oxygen tank bag. Tank opened the back door of a matte black SUV. Kids in the middle. Stay low. Liam climbed in first, pulling Riley after him. Bear slid into the front seat. Tank took the wheel. 2 trucks pulled ahead, 2 behind. The rest flanked them on bikes. It wasn't an escort. It was an extraction. Tank's voice crackled through the radio. All units move. Formation Wolf. No gaps. Engines roared as they pulled out of the parking lot. Liam peeked out the tinted window. The hospital shrank behind them, glowing, sterile, pretending to be safe. But tonight, it had felt like a battlefield. Riley whispered, Dad, what if he follows us? Bear twisted around in his seat to face her. He won't get within 50 yards of this convoy. Not tonight. Tank added, We got drones in the sky. Cameras on every route. Kane shows his face. We'll know. Liam hugged his arms to his chest, still shaking. He was really there, looking for me. Bear met his eyes. And we're gonna make damn sure he never gets that close again. For a few minutes, silence filled the SUV, thick, heavy, humming with tension. The night raced past outside. Dark highways. Empty roads. The city was fading behind them. Then Bear reached back and rested a hand on Liam's shoulder. Kid, I need you to hear this, he said quietly. You stepped into a world tonight you didn't ask to be part of. But the angels don't run from threats. We don't abandon people. And we sure as hell don't leave kids to fight battles alone. Liam swallowed hard. But I'm not. I'm not part of you. Bear shook his head. Family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's who shows up when your world's falling apart. Outside, the rumble of 20 motorcycles surrounded them like thunder, a rolling promise of protection. And if you're the kind of person who believes family is the people who lock shields when danger closes in, hit subscribe and share this story, because what comes next will show how far loyalty can go when lives are on the line. The convoy left the highway and turned onto a long, isolated road cutting through the trees. Liam felt the tension in the SUV shift. He leaned closer to the window. What is this place? He asked. Bear looked ahead. Home. 2 massive warehouse-sized buildings emerged from the darkness, surrounded by fences, floodlights, and security cameras. The Angels Clubhouse wasn't a bar with neon signs like people imagined. It was a fortress. Bikers patrolled the perimeter with flashlights. 2 stood guard at the gate, hands on holsters. Tank rolled down his window. Open up. We're on red alert. The gates swung wide. The convoy pulled in, engines echoing off steel and concrete. Men stopped what they were doing to stare, some confused, some concerned, all instantly alert when they saw the kids in the back seat. Bear stepped out first. Shut the gates, he ordered. Nobody gets in without my say. The gates clanged shut behind them. The moment Liam climbed out, a massive biker named Rooster jogged over. We got every exit covered, Bear. Drones are live. If a mosquito breathes wrong on our property, we'll hear it. Good, Bear said. We're on lockdown until further notice. Rooster nodded and ran off. Riley clutched Liam's hand. I've never been here at night. Bear softened as he walked toward her. You're safe here, baby girl. I promise. He guided them inside the main building. The interior was surprisingly warm. Dim lights, rustic furniture, the smell of coffee and motor oil blending in the air. A long table stretched across the room where bikers had been playing cards. All eyes turned toward the kids. One of the older men, Smoke, stood from his chair. Bear, is that the boy from the news? Bear nodded. And he's in danger. Kane was at the hospital. A murmur rippled through the room. Anger, disbelief, fury. Smoke spat on the floor. That bastard's got a death wish. Tank stepped forward. We need 20 volunteers to rotate shifts. Eyes on cameras, eyes on the perimeter. In less than a second, half the room stepped forward. Liam stared. He didn't understand how strangers, men whose names he'd never heard, could be willing to stand guard for him. Bear noticed his expression. Kid, Bear said, placing a heavy hand on Liam's shoulder. You saved one of ours. That makes you one of ours. Liam looked down, overwhelmed. Riley squeezed his hand, smiling weakly. See? I told you. Bear gestured toward a door at the back of the room. Come on. There's a safe room prepared. Reinforced walls. No windows. Only one entry point. Inside, the room was simple. Bunk beds, blankets, a small bathroom, and a mini fridge. Tank checked every corner, then nodded. It'll do. Riley crawled onto the lower bunk. Liam sat beside her, the mattress sinking under their combined weight. He finally exhaled, but his breath still trembled. Bear knelt in front of them, taking both kids' hands gently. Listen to me. Kane wants one thing. To finish what he started with your family, Liam. But he's going to fail. Because now he's not coming after a helpless boy. He looked at Tank. He's coming after all of us. Tank smirked. And we bite back. The kids nodded. Bear stood. Try to sleep. We've got guards outside this door all night. Tank stepped toward the exit, pausing just before leaving. Bear, he said quietly. What's the plan tomorrow? Bear's answer was calm. We hunt. When the door shut behind them, the room went still. The kids lay side by side on the same bunk, Riley breathing softly, Liam staring at the ceiling, trying to process the chaos of the last few hours. But sleep didn't come, not with one thought haunting him. Sawyer Kane knew where he was now, and the angels had just declared war. Sleep didn't come for Liam, not even close. He lay on the narrow bunk, eyes fixed on the ceiling, listening to Riley's slow, steady breaths beside him. Somewhere beyond the reinforced walls, he could hear the low rumble of bikes patrolling the property, the occasional crackle of radios, the distant thud of boots on concrete. The angels weren't resting. They were preparing for war. Every time Liam closed his eyes, he saw that scarred face again, Sawyer Kane, moving through the hospital like a shadow, slipping out of cameras, navigating blind spots with the practiced ease of a man who'd hunted half his life. Riley stirred. You're awake, she whispered. Yeah, Liam murmured. You should sleep. Not unless you do. He sighed, shifting on the mattress, trying not to shake. I just keep thinking, what if he comes here? Riley rolled onto her side, facing him. Dad won't let him get near us. I know, Liam said quietly. But he got near us at the hospital. What's stopping him from trying again? Riley squeezed his hand. This place is different. He'd have to walk through every biker in the state. And she wasn't wrong. Still, fear had a way of ignoring logic. Footsteps stopped outside the safe room. Heavy ones. Two voices murmured, Rooster and Smoke, changing shifts. Liam felt his muscles loosen just slightly. The angels were out there. Awake. Alert. He let out a slow breath. Riley whispered, Liam? Yeah. I'm glad you're here. Her voice wasn't dramatic. Not emotional. Just honest. Liam swallowed. I'm glad you're safe. Before she could answer, a buzz crackled from a radio outside the door. Rooster's voice. Bear, you need to get to the camera room. Now. Liam sat up instantly. Riley pushed herself upright, her face pale. Smoke replied, "What is it?" Rooster's voice came through again, tense. "Just get Bear and Tank. Now." Seconds later, heavy boots thundered down the hallway. The safe room door swung open, and Bear stepped inside, Tank on his heels. Liam's stomach dropped at the look on Bear's face. Not panic, not anger. Something worse. Controlled fury. "We need you both in the surveillance room," Bear said. "Now." Riley slid off the bunk. "Dad, what's going on?" "I'll show you," Bear said, voice clipped. The kids followed him down the hallway, Tank behind them like a steel shadow. They entered a dim room filled with monitors, 20 screens displaying live feeds from drones, perimeter cameras, gate sensors, and infrared surveillance. Rooster pointed at the largest screen. "There," he said. Liam's heart froze. A slow-motion replay showed a figure at the edge of the Angels' property line. The camera caught only his side profile, but the scar, even in infrared, was unmistakable. Sawyer Kane, standing in the tree line, watching the clubhouse. Watching them. Tank cursed under his breath. "Son of a, how did he get that close?" Rooster rewound the footage. He wasn't trying to get in, just observing. Bear leaned closer. "Zoom in. Enhance." Rooster tapped the controls. The image sharpened. Kane wasn't just watching. He was smiling. And worse. He held something in his hand. Riley gasped. "Is that?" Liam's chest constricted. It was a photograph. The same photograph Kane had dropped at the hospital. Liam's mother, Elena Harper, holding him as a newborn. Kane stared straight into the camera before turning and walking back into the darkness. Bear slammed a fist against the table. The entire room jumped. Tank grabbed the back of a chair, knuckles white. "He's taunting us. Testing defenses," Rooster added. "He wanted us to see him." Bear rounded on Liam, kneeling so they were eye level. "Kid, he's not done," Bear said, voice low but steady. "He's making this personal." Liam's eyes burned. "Why me? Why won't he stop?" Bear didn't soften the truth. "Because you're the last living Harper. And because killing you means he wins a war he thinks was stolen from him." Riley stepped closer, voice trembling. "Then we'll protect him. All of us." Tank looked at her. "This isn't just about Liam anymore, kid. Kane's willing to hurt anyone connected to him. That means you. Bear. All of us." Everyone fell silent. On the screen, the paused image of Kane looked back at them. Cold, calculating, relentless. And if you believe kids should never pay the price for the violence adults started, comment "Stop hurting the kids," because what Liam was about to hear next would make the entire room go cold. Bear stood slowly. "Rooster, rewind another 10 seconds." Rooster did. Tank leaned in. "What am I looking for?" Bear tapped the screen. "There. See that? A faint silhouette, a second figure, lurking a few feet behind Kane. Harder to see. No distinguishable features." Riley whispered, "He's not alone." Tank swore again. "Kane's got backup." Rooster checked timestamps. 2 minutes later, both silhouettes disappear east, toward the old county road. Bear straightened, his voice turning steel. "He's not scouting. He's positioning." Liam blinked. "Positioning for what?" Bear stared at him with grim certainty. "For a strike." Silence swallowed the room. Then Bear turned to Tank and Rooster. "Wake every man we've got. I want double patrols, triple eyes on every angle, and drones in the air all night. Nobody sleeps." Tank nodded sharply. "On it." Rooster moved fast, barking orders into the radio. Bear turned back to Liam and Riley. "You two, back to the safe room. Doors locked. Guards posted. You don't leave unless I say so." Riley took Liam's hand again. "Dad, what if he comes tonight?" Bear looked at them, not with fear, but with a promise. Then he chose the wrong night. Liam felt the weight of that settle into his bones. Because tonight, Sawyer Kane wasn't hunting a boy. He was walking straight into an army. Night had fallen like a black curtain over the Angels' compound, and every shadow seemed to move with a purpose. The perimeter lights cast long, sharp streaks across the gravel, highlighting the bikes parked strategically along the edges and the motorcycles lining the courtyard, engines silent but ready. The hum of anticipation thrummed in the air. Bear walked slowly among the men gathered in the main hall, their faces hardened by years of life on the edge, every one of them alert. Tank, Rooster, and a dozen others were checking weapons, comms, and vehicle readiness, their movements precise and automatic. Liam and Riley were secured in the safe room, but Bear's mind was elsewhere, calculating. Kane wasn't just dangerous. He was methodical, patient, and cruel. Outside, a cold wind whispered through the trees. The night was still, but even in its stillness, Bear could feel the tension, a predator approaching. Kane had never been reckless. He would never come alone if he intended to strike. Hours passed. The compound seemed frozen, but inside, every nerve was alive. Then, faintly at first, the unmistakable sound of tires crunching gravel reached the edge of the property. Bear's hand hovered near his sidearm, eyes narrowing. Tank muttered, "Bikes. 3 of them. Moving fast." Rooster keyed the comms. "All units, east perimeter. Visual. Now." The shadows of 3 figures emerged from the tree line, motorcycles cutting through darkness, silent except for the low purr of engines muffled by careful riding. Kane was leading, unmistakable even in low light, his posture confident, almost casual. The other 2 flanked him, faceless in helmets, but lethal in presence. Bear and the team waited, silent, the hum of tension louder than any engine. Kane's gaze scanned the compound, almost as if he could see through walls. Then, in a move that was pure Kane, he slowed, positioning himself strategically, drawing their attention without committing fully. Tank whispered, "He's testing." Watching reactions. Bear didn't respond. He had to anticipate Kane's next move. The 3 figures moved again, faster now, gliding through the gravel like shadows hunting prey. Every angel on the perimeter was alert, hands on weapons, eyes never leaving the approaching threat. Suddenly, one of the flanking figures made a sudden dash toward the fence, attempting a diversion. The angels reacted immediately, a coordinated response honed over years of discipline and danger. Within seconds, the figure was neutralized, pinned without injury, and a warning shot was fired into the ground nearby. Kane didn't flinch. He slowed his bike, eyes locked on Bear, on the compound, reading every movement, every reaction. The night held its breath. Inside the safe room, Liam and Riley pressed against the walls, watching the dim shadows flicker across the windows. Riley's hand clutched Liam's tightly, her knuckles white. "He's not leaving," Liam whispered. "I know," she replied. "But Dad and the others, they've got this." Outside, Kane made his decision. With surgical precision, he turned and disappeared into the tree line, leaving only the lingering echo of his bike tires and a faint trace of disturbance in the gravel. It was a message, clear and cold. He had been there, he had assessed, and he would return. Bear exhaled slowly, tension leaving his shoulders in a controlled release. "He knows we're ready," he said, voice low but resolute. That was a warning. He won't stop until he's forced to face us all at once. Tank stepped forward. "Then we make sure that happens on our terms, not his." Rooster nodded, checking the comms again. Perimeter doubled, drones still in the air, lights fully operational. Nobody slips through again. Bear walked toward the safe room, every step deliberate. He opened the door, motioning Liam and Riley to follow. "You 2 need to stay put. No exceptions. This isn't over." Riley nodded, swallowing hard. Liam's eyes never left the window, where the last shadows of Kane had vanished into the night. "Why does he keep targeting me?" Liam asked quietly. Bear crouched beside him, looking into his son's eyes with unwavering certainty. "Because you're the key, Liam. He thinks he can finish something that started long before you were born. But we're not letting that happen. Not tonight. Not ever." Hours stretched into the early morning, the night still brimming with tension. Every angel patrolled, Every camera feed monitored, every sound noted. The compound had become a fortress, but Cain had shown them that even the strongest walls could be challenged, tested, and measured. And somewhere in the darkness beyond, Cain was watching, calculating, waiting for the perfect moment to strike again. But this time, he would find not just a boy and a girl, but an army forged in loyalty, violence, and a protective love that would not be denied. The night finally began to fade, a pale gray light brushing the horizon. The angels remained vigilant, exhausted but unwavering. Bear knew that Cain's patience could outlast any one night, but so could theirs. Liam felt a strange sense of calm in the early dawn, the quiet after the storm. Cain had come, but he hadn't broken them. He had tested them. And Bear's presence, the presence of every angel, had made it clear anyone who threatened Liam or Riley would face consequences beyond imagination. The sun rose over the compound, casting long shadows across the gravel and metal, and Bear allowed himself a brief, controlled sigh. Cain would return, yes, but when he did, the angels would be ready. And Liam, Riley, and the fragile sense of family they were building would not be alone. The battle was far from over, but the line had been drawn. The first light of dawn hadn't yet reached the horizon when the Hell's Angels gathered inside the clubhouse. Liam stood at the center of the dimly lit room, Riley tucked safely behind him, her small hand gripping his jacket. Around them, the club members checked weapons, loaded gear, and ran through contingencies. The air was thick with tension, but it wasn't fear. This was controlled, focused anticipation. Cain had tested them last night, probing their defenses, but now the angels were no longer reacting. They were planning to strike. Bear approached Liam, his presence calm, yet commanding. "He won't stop," Bear said, his voice low but steady. "Sawyer, Cain doesn't quit. Last night was just a warning. Today we finish this." Liam nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle over his shoulders. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for Riley, for every angel who had his back, and for the principle that no one threatened their family without consequences. Outside, the streets were quiet, almost deceptive in their calm. The angels moved like shadows, motorcycles lined up and engines idling. A dozen sets of eyes scanning the neighborhood. They weren't just hunting Cain. They were surrounding him, closing the net. Liam rode beside Bear, Riley safely behind him on another bike, flanked by trusted angels whose names he knew and whose loyalty was absolute. Every mile brought them closer to Cain, every heartbeat a reminder that this was the moment it had all been building toward. They found Cain at an abandoned industrial yard on the outskirts of the city. The air smelled of gasoline and rust. The skeletal frames of old warehouses cast long shadows under the rising sun. Cain's 3 motorcycles were parked haphazardly, and he paced like a predator uncertain of the trap. His 2 remaining associates flanked him, weapons ready, eyes flicking to every noise. Bear signaled to Liam. "You and me. Riley stays with the others. Keep her safe." Liam exhaled, steadying himself. "Let's end this," he said. Together, they approached, boots crunching on gravel, weapons concealed but ready. The tension was palpable, a silent war stretching between them. Cain saw them first and smiled, a thin, cruel line. "I've been expecting you," he called out, voice echoing across the yard. "Not enough," Bear replied, calm but lethal. "You should have stayed home." The confrontation erupted with sudden violence. Cain's associate fired first, but the angels were ready. Liam ducked behind a rusted shipping container as bullets tore into metal. Bear moved like a force of nature, precise and ruthless, neutralizing the first threat in moments. Liam returned fire strategically, never reckless, covering angles and advancing steadily. Cain's eyes widened for a fraction of a second as he realized he had underestimated them. Not just the club, but Liam himself. Riley's safety remained the first priority. She huddled behind the protective line of angels, clutching a blanket, her fear palpable, but her trust in Liam absolute. Every shot fired, every move executed, was a testament to the bond between Liam and the angels and the code they followed. Protect the innocent, strike with precision, and never let fear dictate action. The battle was brief but brutal. Cain was cornered, his associates incapacitated, the harsh reality of the angels' skill and determination hitting him fully. Bear and Liam approached, rifles lowered but eyes unwavering. Cain sank to his knees, the fight drained from him, not out of mercy, but inevitability. "This isn't over," he spat, voice trembling with fury. "You don't know what's coming." Liam's gaze hardened. "I do. You've been hunted long enough. Stay down, Cain. Today, your threats end." Bear stepped forward, hand on Cain's shoulder, the gesture both protective and commanding. The angels surrounded him, ensuring he had no chance of escape. It was over, not in a dramatic blaze of glory, but in the certainty of justice served. The adrenaline slowly ebbed as Cain was taken into custody. Liam walked back to Riley, kneeling to meet her gaze. "It's done," he said softly, brushing her hair from her eyes. She exhaled, relief flooding her small frame, and for the first time in weeks, allowed herself to smile. The terror that had gripped her heart loosened its hold. Liam held her close, realizing that victory wasn't just about defeating Cain. It was about reclaiming life, safety, and trust. Bear clapped Liam on the back. "You did well," he said. "All of you. That's what family does. We show up, we protect, and we fight when it counts." Liam nodded, his mind already moving through the next steps. The aftermath wouldn't be simple. Cain's influence had left ripples. But with the angel's presence, Liam knew those ripples would never grow into waves. Back at the clubhouse, the angels regrouped, tending to minor injuries, sharing stories, and reflecting on the night. The mood was solemn yet triumphant. Liam watched as Riley interacted with other members, laughing despite the scars of fear. The resilience of the young girl, coupled with the unwavering support of the club, filled him with a profound sense of pride. They had survived together, and that survival had forged something stronger than any threat Cain could wield. If you've been following this story, comment below, "Protect the innocent," if you believe in standing up for those who can't defend themselves. Tell us where you're watching from. This story has reached so many people because of viewers like you. Liam sat alone later that night, looking out over the city from the rooftop. Riley slept beside him, exhausted but safe. The streets were quiet, the chaos of Cain's vendetta finally at rest. Liam realized that while Cain had intended to instill fear, he had only strengthened the bond between Liam, Riley, Bear, and the angels. The true victory wasn't in Cain's defeat. It was in survival, in loyalty, in the unshakable ties of chosen family. Bear joined him silently, looking over the skyline. "The streets will whisper about Cain," he said, "but they'll also remember what we did. We protect our own, and we'll keep doing it." Liam nodded, understanding that vigilance would always be part of their lives, but so would triumph, trust, and resilience. Days turned into weeks. Liam and Riley slowly reclaimed a sense of normalcy. The Hell's Angels ensured that Cain's influence couldn't reach them again. Routine returned, school, meals, walks in the neighborhood, but every step was now infused with the knowledge of what they had endured and overcome. Riley began to sleep through the night without fear, her laughter returning in full measure. Liam watched her grow stronger, feeling the weight of his protective promise fulfilled. The final weeks were spent rebuilding and reinforcing. The angels repaired the clubhouse, restocked supplies, and solidified security measures. Liam trained alongside them, not just in combat, but in strategy, ensuring that should any threat arise, the Hell's Angels and his family would be prepared. The experience had transformed him. He was no longer just reacting to danger. He was anticipating, planning, and protecting with an unwavering resolve. Liam and Bear often sat with Riley on the rooftop, sharing stories of the past, lessons learned, and plans for the future. The bond between the three had never been stronger. Liam realized that Kane's attempt to destroy them had failed spectacularly, because in the end, strength was not measured by fear or aggression, but by unity, courage, and the love of those who stood by you. If you believe in the power of family, loyalty, and courage, hit that subscribe button now. More stories of bravery, sacrifice, and unbreakable bonds are coming, and you won't want to miss them. As the sun set over the city, Liam felt an overwhelming sense of closure. The threat of Kane was neutralized, Riley was safe, and the Hells Angels had proven once more why they were more than just a club. They were a family, a force of protection, and a symbol of unwavering loyalty. And while tomorrow would bring new challenges, tonight they rested. Together, united, unbroken.